Now, Jewish law required that 2 adults had to escort that little baby lamb, which had been living in the household with them for the 5 days prior to Passover, so that you would become attached, a personal relationship with the lamb that was going to be slaughtered for that meal. Okay? I just know the little Jewish kids gave cute little names to the little thing. And then Dad and Uncle Joe would take it down to the temple to be slaughtered. Now imagine that night that they're having Passover, the Lord's Supper as we would call it, that there are 500,000 people walking the streets with baby lambs, going to the Temple Mount to kill these lambs. The river, the creek that ran from the Temple Mount down through the valley in Jerusalem would run blood red, crimson for a week. There was so much blood going into it. This is the picture of what's happening just before Jesus dying on the cross. They come back and they're having the Seder. And Jesus, in Matthew 26, stops them and says, I want to give you a new covenant. I want to give you a new covenant. And he goes on to teach. And do you know, in the midst of this thing, Jesus says, now hear this. This is God himself speaking. Because all of a sudden, in the midst of the Seder, this picture of everything, he stops with the cup of redemption, the third cup, and says, I have become the Passover.
Praise God.
Wow. You be 12 Jewish males sitting in the room where he has said, one of you is going to betray me. I will die within the next 3 days. One of you is going to deny me. He's going through all this, and he says, I have become the Passover. Wow. Gives a whole new meaning to take that little cup of grape juice. But he doesn't stop there. Do you know what the fourth cup is called? Really? Cup of praise. He goes on in his teaching of this new covenant. He says, I will refrain from drinking the fourth cup until we all gather in the end. Yeah. Ooh, lambs. What's the supper on the other side that we all celebrate? Jesus is now prophetically saying that I am going to withhold, the Son of God, the fourth cup of the Seder until we all come together in the end at the Lamb's Supper. Woo! Awesome! He's teaching Jewish Haggadah. He's going through the Jewish law. He said he's been teaching, I am the law. Now he's saying, I am the Passover. Fulfillment of the law. Ooh. When we do this, this isn't a trite thing that we do because Uncle Harry used to do this in his church, you know? Jesus says, do this in remembrance of me. Do this in remembrance of the fact that I have told you I have become the Passover. I am.
Praise God.
The forgiveness of all sin. Crispy, a couple of my guys. Mark, Steve, could you help me get please? These are hard words. I'm not some radical, okay? Listen, I'll tell you something. You minister in a Jewish community like we have at Nick, could I take you to just give one to everybody, please. Do you know, I've learned more about Jewish studies as a pastor living in a Jewish community than I ever in seminary. They just don't teach you this stuff. They don't. I'll read you something here. It's really good. I love how the fact that when you go to read the fact that the unleavened bread, by the way, how do we know the matzah is real? I had some talk with some rabbis one day about how do we know that this is really what they use? Do you know for 4,000 years, Jewish leaders have died preserving the recipe and the method of making it? That's how we know this is what they ate. Because they still make it. Because they were willing to put their lives on the line to protect it. This is history. This is. I love in the Haggadah when it talks about the unleavened bread. In the Bible, it's often, when they go to who God is, they leave out the word. They have a blank in the text because you're not holy enough to say his name. The bread is the picture of the sinlessness of God, that perfectness.
It's not a new name. He's going to be new name.
But you have this wafer, this piece of matzah that, I'll get a piece in a second. When you take it, I always break it. I try to give you a big piece. But I always break it because I want to remind myself. When I take it, I break it because I want to remind myself of his body was broken for us. Do you know that when the cross, that not one bone was broken, but he was whipped, he was beaten? Do you know when they thrusted the pole? By the way, we have the Banksy piece over here. It really wasn't the cross that we know. It was a pole, the size of a telephone pole. When it was thrust in the ground with the force that it was, every joint in his body came loose. Do you know that he was naked? Do you know that he was so badly beaten? He was so bruised. He was so bloody. Eventually he's naked, but you couldn't tell if it was a man or a woman hanging there. So when I say you take this bread and you break it, you need to remind yourself that God himself did that for you. Take the bread. Jesus in this upper room with his disciples, he said, this cup, this third cup of the Seder meal, is the picture of the redemption that is to come. I have become the Passover. This is the blood that I'm shedding for you in the next 3 days. Let's take it together.